Hey everyone, Joe here from ActionX. Welcome to What's on the Tube, or welcome back if this is your fifth Nancy Drew Season 2 episode review. Are we on fifth? Yeah, we're on fifth. Alright, so here we are. We're finally, the Aglaria mystery has come to pass. It's over, and because you assume if you watched last week's episode, they're not going to drag out the last day into like 2 episodes, so don't even think about that. This week, I felt very... This was a really good ending to the story. I did definitely believe that they definitely did drag us out a couple more episodes in terms of like where things were going to end originally had COVID-19 not happened. So I felt like it was a blessing and a curse, if I have to use Nancy Drew terminology here to describe this Aglaria season 2 portion of the arc. But overall, with this conclusion, I felt very satisfied by it. I did feel a little bit of a cop-out, since I think they were kind of hyping this up to be kind of like a really emotional ending, and I thought for a good second they would have done something pretty damn crucial, and then they didn't, which I could see why they didn't do it. But I also this would have been such a big thing to push, and it would have been very rare for the CW to do something like this, like such a big status quo shift. But like typical fashion, they didn't do it, and I see why. But I felt like they missed an opportunity there. But let me go through the Butcher recap to talk about it more specifically with you. So we begin with the group reuniting at the Claw after failing to trap the Aglaria, now trying to let's kill the damn deity being spirit once and for all. So they have to find more sand. So from what I remember now, because the last week was such a blur for me because of a lot of other things, but so from what I'm saying is that the sand, when around the Aglaria, it turns into the gillyweed that we assume may have killed her originally in her original life. So they theorize that this could be the way to kill it once and for all, so they can save their lives. And so this episode, for the most part, in its first half, was definitely getting to that point of like we're finally paying off the season 1 finale dues of like we're putting these characters in their death situations. And then also trying to like kind of tease us and finish up some like legacy stuff, as well as teasing us for later stuff during the season. So Nancy goes off back to her house because she assumes that that's where like the biggest portion of the sand would be, because she had the original gillyweed after she got choked. She was getting choked towards the end of season 1, but turns out when Bess was beginning to move in or something like that, she feng shui the place, so she kind of got rid of everything that was kind of bad. So Nancy was kind of internally pissed, but considering the circumstances, like it was kind of still something that was boiling in inside her. So she texted everyone that she couldn't find it. I forgot if there was another scene, or we just go back to the Claw. I do know we get a scene. I just don't entirely remember it for the life of me. Do we get another scene at the Claw? Before the Claw? I don't think we do. I think we do, but I'm blanking on that scene. So we cut back to the Claw. Nancy's informing everyone about it, and everyone's like tensions are very high. This is their last day on Earth. This is their last day to like save their lives as well as. Yeah, Nancy's screwed them over. Like this is exactly where the beginnings of when Ace was beginning to kind of like be a little bit against Nancy. Now everyone else is starting to realize that even though technically they were doing the right thing, it was still Nancy's fault that she got them in this situation. And then she has this heroic complex that she needs to save them. And Nancy Drew is the protagonist. She is going to somehow save the day, but everyone just didn't want to be saved. They want to live boring lives, and they were starting to bring up issues they had with Nancy, or stuff of that, and also bringing out faults within themselves, and just some unresolved things that we've been kind of like, honestly, like, I completely forgot there's a lot of like Ace was technically an informant for a long time because of breaking into federal databases, which he he hasn't revealed. We'll get to that later, but everyone has like their own little secrets. Nancy had enough of it, and she just leaves the claw to kind of continue to look for the sand. She heads back to the historic society where not Ace, Mr. Drew and Ryan teamed up to be the father dual patrol for Nancy, trying to figure out what's going on because they've been left out of the loop this entire arc. And Ryan is still trying to figure out his own issues with his dad now that he's kind of now being thrown in the position that he is now a dad of his own. It seemed like Mr. Drew and him were like kind of beginning to bond a little bit. Like he was going to recommend some parenting books, which is kind of weird since technically Nancy's at that age where like, yeah, you don't really need a book to figure that out because she's already done the growing up portion without you, but whatever. But at the society, she begs the keeper to find some remnants of the sand within their vaults, which she does agree to, and she goes into this like very secretive back room of locked possessions to try and find something that can help Nancy. But meanwhile, Nancy looks at this big book of like records and such, and she finds a lot of items, and some include a demon bowl, a cloth that resurrects people. That'll come into play later. The keeper finds her looking at this, and even though Nancy's kind of like really at the edge of her toes, the keeper's like, you can't look at this. I tried looking for something for you to use. There's nothing to use, and like we don't even know half of these items, like their real like uses and stuff like that. So it's better you just leave it to me and try and figure this out on your own. But then I believe Nancy gets a flashback from I remember now. So the scene in between the Nancy being pissed at Bess to the claw scene was George goes back home to like try and look for Santa on her own, and she just runs into her sisters, and she gets a reminder of how much she's gonna miss this if she fails to come back. Like, just seeing her sisters again, having the argumental mornings with them, all that sorts. Even they have a breakfast selfie, which I'm like, I just honestly got the weirdest selfie reason I've ever heard, but whatever. Family reasons. I never taken a breakfast selfie before. So that was a kind of a cute moment, also kind of like foreshadowing that, like, yeah, Georgia's got a lot to lose, she's, unlike everyone else, who's kind of like got one or so family members, like she actually has people depending on her, so she has a even more bigger reason to fight for this. So I believe from there, so cutting back to Nancy, she spots Ryan, Mr. Drew, fairly obvious because Ryan's blue car sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, there's not that many rich people's cars in Horseshoe Bay, but Nancy then remembers that she did drive with Ryan, I believe, at the end of season 1, and she did pull out her hair, which that vision, that death vision, or that like vision of like death is coming, like continued to stand, and Ryan had sand in his car, so she goes in on the presumption of trying to get the sand, which Ryan still has vacuumed up in his back, which is kind of weird to have a vacuum in the back of your car, but whatever, to each their own. One of my best friends is like a car guy, and I'm like, I would not be surprised if he had a vacuum in his car. So from there, I believe she gets the vacuum. She once again goes back to ignoring the both of them and starts going back off to not reunite with the Claw group, because the rest of the Drew crew, because I think they're still like very much torn about it. And I do believe, do we get a scene with not yet. I think we get a scene where Nick and George are just working on the car for a bit. I believe so. I think this is pre the next scene, so I think there was a scene before Nancy got the sand, if I'm remembering it right. Yeah, I'm really blanking so hard, but Nancy decides to split off the sand and like drop it at each person's like respective dead zones. Ace is in the meat locker, Bess at the fireplace at Nancy's home, Nick and George is at the at his car, and then Nancy is at the cliff where she is visioned to die. And then while they're waiting, and they're waiting for the battle of their lives, literally and figuratively. Nick just gets a little bit anxious. Well, I don't know if it was Nick or Bess. I think it was Bess. Someone of those two started the conversation. Like, they called each other, just trying to talk it through to each other, trying to like get this uneasiness, like kind of like trying to wait out this death clock. And it was really nice. Like, for a moment, like they actually felt like a real group, a real clique. Like, they're united by this cause to die, that they're going to die, and like this is their final moment. So they're trying to like do like this whole big confessional thing. Then Ace and Nancy join in too, and they start revealing these big things about, well, some minor things, some big things that hopefully, I guess this is where we start setting up the seeds for the remaining portion of season 2. Well, I'll start with the minor one. Bess apparently steals everyone's stuff when she feels sad, which I'm assuming is quite a lot, considering the fact Bess has had a rocky first season and then so far a rocky second season. So I'm pretty sure she's stolen a lot of stuff. She should be arrested for it. Ace reveals that the reason he was on the informant list to kind of avoid going to prison was because he hacked into the federal database to get this witness protection program confidance's number. But he doesn't give the reason on why he was doing it for that reason. Nick reveals that, yeah, he has the USB drive full of like incriminating evidence against the Hudsons. But since a lot of that was still uncompleted before then, he would need someone on the inside or just a Hudson in general to kind of like finish off the work and then be able to like take down the head once and for all. I think George confesses something, but I'm not entirely sure what it was. I believe Nancy was about to confess. I do believe they did confess to something. I just cannot remember for the life of me what the hell they confessed to, because they start hearing the French melody and they're like, yeah, it's time, and they're just looking around like, and Nancy conveniently hears this, makes some missteps, and like basically falls off the cliff, but she manages to catch herself just in the nick of time. But she's hanging for Fred, and I initially thought like for a good while that like, yeah, either Mr. Drew or Ryan are gonna come around and like save the day, forgive and forget, but that doesn't really happen. But we'll get back to her in a minute. I believe Ace goes inside once he hears into the icebox. When he hears the melody, he gets locked in there. The Hook starts like just extravagating against him, like he wants to pierce the skin, pierce the skin, pierce the skin. It actually does cut Ace up his arm a little bit, and he just tries to hide in the corner and like away from the angle of the meat hook, which actually isn't that which is actually pretty smart. The fireplace erupts and starts to about to hit Bess, but George and Nick were the real people to like be targeted first. The Aglaria goes after them. It gets into their car. Thankfully, Nick throws the sand in her face. The water activates, and for some reason they did not get in the depth vision. There is a way out. The sunroof is there, so they use that to escape. They trap the Aglaria there. Presumably, it does kill her. Presumably, so. You feel like this is the end. This is like the very end. Like they got in because the fire stops. Ace's meat hook the door opens, so he's able to go free, but he is bleeding a little bit. And Nancy's still cliffside. She's just waiting for someone to save her, but then she flashes back to when young Carson first got her, like just telling her like it's gonna be okay, like you're safe now. And she kind of uses that as motivation to kind of like lift herself up from the cliff and gets back up to like solid ground, and thankfully saves herself. So, and I believe, yeah, this was the exact halfway mark of the episode. They reunited the Claw. So happy that they defeat the Aglaria once and for all. It's over. I'm also checking my mic level, seeing it working. It is working, thank God. I don't want to like deal with another ADR fiasco. So they're about to celebrate, and then they all get more death visions, now this time updated the Claw, since their original death visions have passed. They supposedly beat it, but now the Aglaria gives them new death visions. They're going to die before midnight in the Claw. So they're screwed, because Nancy said, like, if the sand couldn't kill her, then we got nothing. Like, it's literally, like, this is the end. So everyone splits off. George is at the Claw, just, like, thinking about stuff, about her family, stuff like that. Bess is trying to hold it together, and they both just recommend, like, let's go back home, let's go back to our homes. George with her family, Bess with the Marvins, but Bess basically admits, like, yeah, no, they're not really my family. This group is my family, and I'm like, yes, I have a family complex, so hearing that, I'm like, yeah, Bess, go for it. She tries to hug George, and she's like, nah, I don't do hugs. So I'm like, still in the eyes of death, George is still the same person, and I love it. Ace is, I'm presumably off in the office or just somewhere else, and he's making a phone call, but the number doesn't work, but he leaves a message for the person, and presumably it's someone he's related to. I think it's his sister, because he said, like, I'm your brother, so that means There's a lot more about the Ace side of things we don't know about, and this is, again, I'm pitching to you for the last freaking time, Nancy Drew Ryder. Give us the Ace episode we deserve. So please give it to us. Anyway, continuing onwards. I believe we got a scene when, yeah, so Nick meets up with Ryan, so in case Nick does die, he wants Ryan to continue the work that Tiffany wanted him to by exposing the Hudsons. Ryan's, of course, a little hesitant on it, but, and, you know, he obviously questions Nick's like, why are you giving this to me? Like, I could just easily bury this and just protect my family's asses. But Nick plays the card that you want to be a father to Nancy, and if you do this, this could be huge bonus points towards you getting that relationship you want. So, no, at least you're not going to throw this away. Plus, it's a copy, so if Nick does survive this night, he still has a copy. He has the original master copy, so... but Ryan takes the USB drive and presumably will keep it for future uses. Again, setting up more stuff for the second half, the later half of season 2. Nancy finally decides to give in. Well, not give in, but she just wants to have an hour of normalcy before she dies. So she buys a buffalo chicken pizza, which, again, how does she get paid? Considering the fact she barely works at the Claw. And she pleads with Mr. Drew just to give her one normal hour of life. Like pre the whole show, pre Mom's death, you know, everything like that. And he grants it to her briefly, but he uses the opportunity to kind of like pitch to her, hey, look, I know you want your father back, but you know, I mean, I could still be that for you, but considering how everything that has happened, he doesn't know entirely if they will ever get back to that point, which definitely does make sense. But Miss McCarson's like willing to like figure this new territory out with Nancy if she would have him, but then something triggers in Nancy's mind that's like gives her one final clue to maybe defeat the Gloria once and for all. So she gives him a hug, you know, saying I love you again, and then she leaves to reunite with the guys back at the Claw, where she pitches this idea that the theory is that the sand, the daily weed, only aggressed the Gloria. It never was meant to kill her. It just weakened her in the sense of like this was something that could weaken her, but it will never kill her. But they said, like, what if they don't try to kill the Eclaria? What if they plead to Adela, the original being pre this spiritual being? So they use the notes and the letters that Nancy found a couple episodes ago as ammunition to try and, like, maybe appeal to Adela in some shape or form. And as soon as they're, like, rehearsing this idea, you know, the Eclaria comes in. She starts attacking everyone. She attacks Ace first. For the love of God, why do you keep attacking Ace? Ace has done nothing wrong. For the love of God. George tries to do something. George tries to continue they're all trying to say these words, like trying to peeve to her, but it's not working. She throws George into the bar. She knocks the other three down to the floor, and as soon as we presume this is it, this is the dying moment, this is the end of the show. You know, screw season 2, screw season 3. This is the end of the show. This is how they die. It's like, but no, it doesn't. It's not how it works, because Nancy just remembers something from one of the letters. She just starts saying it from the heart, and it certainly is affecting the Eclaria. So that worked, and then eventually everyone else says something like a little bit of a piece, and then it manages to be enough to remove the Eclaria, and then we just get Adela. And I initially thought for a moment, like, is she alive? Like, are we actually? Did they actually like somehow brought up a deceased person back from the, like, into the future? It's like that would have been a pretty cool concept how they continue that, but you know, it doesn't. They just continue talking and pleading with her, and it's enough to kind of like, they've not defeat her, but just kind of enough for her to dissipate. And we assume, yeah, that's it. The Eclaria is gone. It's past midnight, so that means the curse has timed down, so they don't die, and that's great. Like, everyone starts to celebrate. Then they look down. It turns out George got impaled during the screeching, and it's a lot of blood. And I'm like, oh fuck, the blood bucket. And it's like, now it's starting to all make sense. So Nick's hold on to her. Everyone's trying to figure out something to do, but since, you know, I'm presumably they're just too far away to do anything, you know, from a hospital or whatsoever, and considering the fact it's a deep wound. But, you know, as Nick being the caring boyfriend, like, is trying to plead with everyone, like, what can we do? There's got to be something we can do to save her. But this is not something in the supernatural realm or something. This is just a natural injury, and, you know, there's nothing really they can do. And George starts to give in and out, and then she finally says, "I love you" to Nick after she passes, but like she's not fully dead yet, but it seems like she's gonna die. Um, and then while everyone's beginning to, and also shout out like huge props to everyone in the scene, like really giving their 110% for this scene. But then Nancy remembers one of the items she'd read in the records book back in the Historic Society of a item that could bring back the dead. So she leaves them. She goes into the society in like flash-like speed. She breaks into the secret door. She finds the recollection box for this item. She grabs the keys, but it's not enough. It won't look. She tries crowbarring it. It won't work. So she decides to break the electrical panel that will unlock everything. And she goes into box number 14 and she finds the cloth, which honestly kind of looks like an average, cloth that you could buy at a freaking Bed Bath & Beyond. No offense to the show. I'm pretty sure like it has some mystical value. But for me, I'm like, yeah, no, this is kind of something you could just get off a regular general store. Not like really this ancient prop, but whatever. Also, sad to say, the curator shows up at the nick of time, and she's like asking Nancy, "What have you done? Like you just..." And obviously, we can't really grasp what the consequences right now because Nancy's more prioritized at saving George. But those locks are open. So what else were in those locks that we don't know about? We'll get back to that later. So again, Nancy, flashlight speeds, heads back to the claw. She puts the cloth over George's wound and most of her body, and she pleads that this would be enough to work, but even though she doesn't have any sort of instructions. After a little bit, it does work. It does bring back George. Nancy gives George the weirdest hug position in the world, and George is like, "Okay, stop. Please, get off me." And it worked. The cloth worked. Everyone's happy that, like, yeah, George is alive, and, yeah, that's it. I mean, surely enough, this will not come back to bite anyone in the ass. And even like Ace's last mini monologue at the end's like, no more curses, no more mysteries. We are officially normal people. And I am like, you will never be normal. You fools are just signing yourself up for more trouble. George goes back into the closet to get some cider to celebrate. As the four, look towards the sunset, now finally showing that there's no death time clock anymore, which is great. But while George is heading back into the claw, she starts singing in the French lullaby, in the French song, and I'm like, wait a minute, how does she know French? She didn't know French like a moment ago, and then we get a very cool shot, like she's like walking past the bar mirror, and she gets a sparkling cider. She goes up. And in the reflection, it's not a reflection of George, it's Odette. So my theory is that the cloth used the leftover spirit energy of the Aglaria or Odette and gave it to George in order for her to be back alive. But now George has a piece of Odelle in her. Well, that's my theory. I could be completely wrong here. I could be just misspeculating. So I believe from the... Yeah, so... And then later on, Nancy's walking back for Horseshoe Bay. Accomplished that, like, yes, this mystery's over, and presumably there's no negative consequences for Nancy's actions. But of course not. We get a pan, like, she feels this cold chill. She pans back to the, we pan back to the Historic Society, and we find out that, all the boxes just start opening, and, like, these mystical energies start romping in. I'm like, either we're about to get weekly mysteries, finally, to the love of God, this is something I really wanted, or we're just setting up for, like, seasons and seasons worth of villains, or at least a lot of, like, potential for, like, future, because they never specify how many boxes were open. I know it was all of them, but they never gave us an exact count, so, like, they can really riff on this for a decent amount of time. And then Nancy just, like, looks at the camera, presumably asking us, what was that? Obviously, I'm pretty sure this was meant to be the season 1 ending, and that would have been a really cool way to, like, end it off. Like, what are we going to deal with? And yeah, that was the end of this episode and the end of the Aglaria arc. So overall, for me, I really enjoyed it. I felt like if they had killed off George, I feel like that would have been such a big moment for the show, because in terms of, like, the main cast, I cannot remember a single time. Well, besides the Laurel Lansing in Era, but then they immediately just semi-retconned that by bringing in another Earth's, Laurel into this. Technically, she was back in the cast, and then eventually she that one was like way better. Spoilers for every Arrow season review later on. Um, I can't remember another time where like we actually lost a full cast member like that to that. I don't, and this could have been it. This could have been a really big game changer for the show. This could have been it. Like, had maybe Nick took over Nick took over being the responsible one in George's family, or maybe just have Bess or Nancy pick up George's slack and like her old position. Like that would have led to so many interesting directions. And obviously, of course, I obviously know why they didn't do it, since they need to set up like more stuff, and it definitely gives George a new direction for her relationship. With everyone else down the line with this whole new Odette connection, but we'll see how that gets panned out. I love how like they were setting up now. We have like at least 4 different directions we can take the rest of the season. Now we have Nick's fight to take down the Hudsons, which might now include Ryan. We have the George Odette connection. We have whatever the hell Aza's like new familiar family sides going on, and of course, obviously these now hopefully mysteries of the week we're about to explore now that we begin season 2. For me, I believe season 2 proper, in my opinion. I feel like this is going to be the real start for like the main story for season 2, and hopefully, in my opinion. And yeah, but there's like a lot of interesting directions they could take, and also now we could start focus. Now that we don't have a death clock anymore, we could start focusing back on everyone else, because it seemed like everything took a pause for good reason. But considering the fact that I know that this had to be changed up to be the season 2 like beginning. You gotta return back to like certain things, like obviously Tiffany. You have to return to Bess's relationship with the Marvins, because like there was a whole big storyline like at the end of season 1 where they were setting this up with like she's gonna get really involved in like the more shady side of the Marvins, but like whatever with the Galeria, like I completely forgot everything about that. Hopefully the next few weeks, I think we go on a break after this next week's episode. Hopefully when we continue on with more episodes, we're going to get to go back to that. Hopefully we're able to go back to like finishing up those storylines or continuing those, and obviously setting up these new storylines. So yeah, I'm very excited for this episode. I think that they're a pretty good job of finishing up the area storyline. So kudos to them. I can't wait to see what's next. Even though it did drag a little bit towards the middle portion, I think they still did like a good landing. So hopefully they'll see where the next taking off point is going to be. But for me, I'm going to give this 2 thumbs up. And I believe that's going to do it for me tonight, everyone. And for some reason, I did not yawn a single time in this episode review. Which is weird considering the fact I worked 8.5 hours today. Not to gloat my boot, not to gloat, but it was a long day for me. So I'm surprised I didn't yawn. And I would not be surprised if I start yawning at any moment now. But before I do that, if you're unaware, this was What's in the Tube, reviewing every episode in Nancy Drew's second season. If you want to know what we're doing overall, What's in the Tube besides those reviews, we're doing every Walker episode reviewed each and every Friday morning after a brand new episode on Thursday nights on the CW, or free the next day on the CW app and the CW.com. We're also doing Rookie Season 3 episode reviews each and every Monday morning after a brand new episode on Sunday nights on ABC, and then the next day on Hulu. But if you don't care about Nancy Drew, then you're in luck. We'll be back for another episode review next week. I believe, if I was looking at the schedule ahead, this next episode will be the last one for a while. I think we're going on a break for a bit. Do not quote me. I do believe we are, because I know Walker is going on a break after this week. We get a 2-week break, and then I have to discuss some things soon enough on the chats about that, so I'll update you on that. But I believe we will be back next week for a new episode review. I believe after that we're off for a week at least. The programming guides only get updated a certain amount of dates. Like I know when certain episodes are coming, so like I know like this is a new episode, but then this one's a rerun. I know after next week we will be going on break. I know that for sure, because they need to like start building up time, because they only started shooting in October or September, with COVID-19 protocols being reopened for shooting. And then since it takes 2 weeks to shoot an episode, I'm going to presume they're going to get caught up pretty soon. I'm not sure on that, don't quote me on that, but I do believe they want to build some more time to get more episodes in the can. Plus, I don't know how much this season's going to go for. They haven't confirmed that just quite yet, but when I know, you'll know. Or if you do know, let me know, and what a valid source, and I'll comment, stuff like that. Also, let me know in the comments below, what did you think of this episode? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Did you think this was a fair conclusion to the Glaring Mystery? Let me know. But we'll be back next week. That's kind of point in there to say it to there. So yeah. So again, this has been What's in the Tube from ActionX. If you want to see more of us from What's in the Tube, please subscribe to ActionX on YouTube.com. Ring that bell for notification when our next episode review is live for Nancy Drew, which is each and every Wednesday. No, not Wednesday. Thursday mornings. Like, favorite, share this review if you have not, but please do. It does help us out a lot. It gets us out there to other people in the Drew Crew community who have yet to see us, and yeah, and it helps bolster our outreach, as well as it's for free. And also follow us on social media. Follow us on Twitter to be up to date on any updates. Follow us on Twitch to be up to date on streaming, which I still have to buy an Elgato for, which I have not. And also, for everyone in the Drew Crew fan base, thank you so much for watching. Until next week, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and as always, peace out.